Hey, g'day big bikers. Well, we're going to do that video about luggage. Hey folks, how are you? Well, this is my VFR 1200 cross tourer with the hard cases on, and we're going to just talk about hard cases for a moment, and hard panniers and the pros and cons. One of the really cool things about hard cases is they provide a great level of security. So they're lockable, they're watertight, dust proof, and in most cases, and you know, you can pull up at a lookout or a tourist destination, carry your helmet and your riding gear, and everything else can stay secure on the bike, and it's a really nice way to travel. My wife and I did that last year. We hired a GS in Los Angeles, and we rode up to San Francisco, went up the Big Sur as far as we could before it was reopened. I believe it's open again now. And we spent 10 days on the bike and loved having the hard cases. And the really great thing about that is we could actually just put our personal belongings in dry bags inside the hard cases, take the hard cases off the bike when we got to the hotel, and just walk in and check in. So it was a really cool way to travel. I've not used these cases on this bike for long distance touring. Most of the places I've ever taken this bike have been touring off-road, or a very large portion of it off-road. So but these are really handy to have on the bike, just for picking up stuff and running around town. I've got the top box on. This is the Givi 45 litre one, so you can fit 2 full face helmets in that one, so it's a really cool box. But I've seen guys on road bikes, Richie Vita, obviously from Wild Bad Touring's the classic example. They basically packed their bikes up in the UK, sent them to Canada, rode all around Canada and the USA with their bikes, hard cases, everything on their road bikes, and all stacked up. The other really good thing about these is that there's lots of room for a pillion. So with a throw over bag or with soft luggage, you don't generally get as much space on the back for a pillion, because you don't really have that much capacity for stuff, and you're tending to use the back seat. So it's a really good way to travel if you've got a pillion, and you can keep everything dry and secure. That's some of the really big pros. Obviously I've probably forgotten a few, but if there's some, then and you can put lots of stickers on them too, so you can put stickers all over them and show people where you've been. The downside, particularly if you're going off-road, the downside with having hard cases is that they don't survive very well if you drop them. Now, I've seen, like you, lots and lots of videos of people traveling the world with hard cases, and generally they do okay, but those boxes look pretty beat up at the end of the day, so the luggage doesn't fare that well. I've been riding with guys, my mate Ian, we did a trip down to the MotoGP a couple of years ago. He came off his Super Tenere, he had hard cases on, and after we picked the bike up and got it running again, we spent about half an hour trying to get the framework on his bike straight again, because it was all bent up from the fall, so it doesn't cope all that well. And if you've got a BMW, not bagging BMWs, just be careful, just gently guys. I'm saying the word BMW doesn't mean I'm bagging them, okay? A big cylinder head out the front, you don't have a lot of room. If you've got a cylinder head and then a hard case, you don't have a lot of room to be able to paddle your bike if you need to get through somewhere that's a little bit more technically difficult. So that can often cause a problem, and it's a common thread. One of the guys we go riding with all the time, you've seen him in a number of my videos, is Barry. Barry loads his GS up when we go touring, and he's got a lot of stuff. He's got stuff on the top there and on the back seat, and we kind of rib him a little bit about and have a little bit of fun with him about how much he loads his bike up. We kind of mock him a little bit about how much stuff he takes. So in response to us mocking him, he made this video.
I've been sitting here thinking about the way some people think that my bike's loaded up too much and I carry too much stuff when I go camping. I mean, the bike carries the weight quite okay, but I mean, it's one of those things where when I go camping, I like to take a little bit of everything with me, just so that I'm comfortable. And my tent's quite well equipped, actually, when I go away camping, so how about I take you and have a look? Come with me. Here we go. Let's just go and have a look. It's a bit hard to bit hard to see here at the moment. It's a little bit dark, you can just bear with me. I just got to get in here, it's a little bit hard. I'm going to try and find the light switch. I've got a little electric light switch set up in it. Hang on. Go. Come inside. Where's that light switch? Here it is. Oh, there you go. Well, that's it inside anyway. It's just got a little bit of a room. It's a good use of the space, really. I've got a bed here at this end and a bit of, so you've got to pardon me, I haven't done the washing up. And then just so in case I've got guests, I've just got a bit of room down this end of the tent. Got a couple of bunks in it. So that's it. You know, camping's not that bad when you get used to it. But this is my little tent. Yeah, it's a good little setup.
You're a funny bugger, mate. So that was a really funny video. And one of the great things I like about that is that it just like he can travel however he wants, you know, and you can travel however you want. It's just the whole concept of taking a motorbike off-road is to try and keep it as light as possible. Now, these bags are Honda's bags, so they fit directly onto the side of the bike and clip off very easily. There's no frames, and you know when you take these off, hang on, there we are. So there's no framework there, so they basically just fit straight onto the bike, and then lock down and secure in place. So that's the Honda one. Strangely enough, the Cross Tourer and the Africa Twin use the same mounting points, so you can actually take the bags off this and put them on the Africa Twin and vice versa. There's only one little difference in the mounting point there, which goes on the rear foot peg of the Africa Twin, which is different. I don't mount them on mine because it's my dirt bike. But you can buy for almost any bike a framework from a myriad of manufacturers. Have got framework and racks you can put on your bike, and then you buy their cases, and those cases mount to the rack, so you can have a variety of luggage available. Tends to be really expensive, and I'll talk about that when I'm talking about the panniers and the throwovers, because getting hard cases is like a fixture to the bike. And even the difference between the Africa Twin and the Africa Twin Adventure Sport, the mounting points for the luggage are completely different. So if you've got luggage that fits on an Africa Twin, and even the racks, like the mounting racks for any of the luggage that you may have, the difference between the Africa Twin and the Africa Twin Adventure Sport is such that you'd actually need to have a different set of racks if you change to buy an Africa Twin Adventure Sport. So, you know, there's a lot of variations between the different manufacturers and the different bikes and the different models they've got, and being able to get a bag that fits one type of bike, both now and any future bike that you may have, is really quite difficult. So it's a big investment, and that's probably one of the other downsides of it, is they're actually quite expensive. So that's the hard cases. Let's go and have a look at the soft panniers with racks. So this is the soft luggage. So these are the Mosko Moto Backcountry 35 litre panniers, and they basically just they very simply slip off. So there's a rack, that's a Barrett rack, the Mosko Moto Wedge, which basically fits any of the racks, and there's a couple of different varieties, but this is very simply, there's a wedge, and then this slot here goes down, and then the whole thing just very simply locks on, very simply locks on, and stops the bag from moving off. You can actually probably put a little padlock on there to secure that bag onto the bike, but as I said, for security, if that's your main concern, then hard case is definitely the way to go. There's a myriad of soft panniers out there. There's thousands of them. I particularly like the Mosko Moto stuff, and I am what's known as a Mosko, full disclosure, I had a few people getting up me lately saying that, oh, you must be taking kickbacks on tyres and stuff because you got such a good deal. But I buy all my stuff from Mosko Moto. I'm one of the Mosko Moto nomads. I represent them in Australia in terms of I'm happy to field questions and send brochures to people if you've got any questions about them. But I paid for all this gear. So the Mosko Moto stuff I like because it's really, really, I've had the Mosko Moto Reckless 80, and I'll show that to you in a moment. I've had that for many, many years, and I've done many trips on all of my bikes with that Reckless, it's called the Reckless 80, but it's rackless. It actually means rackless. So it doesn't have a rack like these do. But after a couple of recent trips, there's a downside to the rackless stuff, and there's a downside to the throw over stuff, and I'll talk about that when I get them. But that kind of disadvantage that you have was enough for me to look at investing in some panniers. Now, the good thing I like about this system is that this wedge will go on any bike. So I don't have to, even if I get an Africa Twin Adventure Sport or a Triumph Explorer or whatever, if I've got a set of racks, then these wedges will fit on that rack. So these are completely transportable. I can move these bags to any bikes that I have now or in the future. The build quality on the Mosko Moto stuff is fantastic, and they're 35 litres each side. So the reason I've got them is because when I get to a destination, I can just lift those bags off, throw that stuff in the tent, and basically go riding without having all the luggage still on the bike. The advantage of the soft luggage is particularly for off-roading. If you're going to be off-roading, dropping the bike onto soft luggage is not so much of a drama. You're not going to be damaging the framework, you're not going to be damaging the case, you're not going to be damaging any of that. This stuff is it's made of that super strong nylon that doesn't wear, and Mosko Moto have had plenty of feedback from customers who've tossed their bikes down the road at high speed, and the stuff has actually survived quite well. Really, really good quality gear. I like the backcountry stuff because it enables me to take those bags off, as I said, when I get to where I'm going, and just take them off. Now I've got my travel rack on. This is a rack going away on a trip shortly. So I've got my travel rack on, and up on there I actually put the Mosko Moto 40 litre. Now if you watched our trip out to the Flinders, you will recognise that bag. That's the one that had all the fuel spilled all over it from the leaky fuel bladder. I got that home, I got the high pressure cleaner out, I cleaned it all down, and it came up sparkling. And as I said on that trip, not only are you waterproof, all sorts of chemicals and solvents and fuels and everything been on that, and the stuff inside remained completely dry. So, in terms of, I mentioned with the hard cases, you've got a lot of passenger space. Well, even with the soft panniers, without the rack on, there's still a passenger seat there. So this is the setup now. I'm basically, this is all my camping gear. I've got all my kitchen in one side and all my clothing and camera gear in the other side, and that's a lot of stuff. It probably doesn't. I could probably cut that all down, but the bike's set up to cope with it. It travels well, and I can put my drone and stuff on the back here, no problem at all. So that's our next trip, is going to be basically set up like that. The soft cases, as I said, the advantages are if you're going off-road, it just provides less hassle if you're dropping the bike. They're easy to get on and off the bike. They're a lot more, you don't have to fit things into a hard shape. You can actually put, just stuff things into corners, and it works really well. So that's the soft panniers. And as I said, I prefer the Mosko Moto stuff. I have used other bags in the past, and I do have, there's lots of good stuff out there. There's Giant Loop, there's Krieger, there's a couple of other ones out there, really, really good quality stuff. I like the form and function of the Mosko Moto stuff, and the fact that you can simply take it off the bag and walk away. Take the bag off the bike, and the way it secures the bike, it's all just really, really simple. Plus the fact that I've used their soft luggage throw over bag for many, many years across my other bikes. So, I'm pretty keen on the Mosko Moto stuff. Go check it out. If you've got any questions about it, obviously, post up a question here, and happy to answer any questions about it. But as you can see, this stuff is so new, it's actually not even been off road. So we'll be doing a trip coming up in a couple of weeks, just straight after Christmas. A heap of us going away, and that'll be getting their baptism of fire. But I've ridden with Neil. Neil's had these soft panniers on his BMW for the last 2 trips that we've done, and that's actually what the main reason, because I saw how well they performed and how flexible and how much space they've got. So I'm just talking at this stage about soft luggage, hard luggage and throwovers. I will do an in-depth review on these because they are such good bags. Okay, let's have a look at the other ones. So here's my XR650, which is my dual sport bike, with the Mosko Moto Reckless 80. So it's called the Reckless 80. It's supposed to mean rackless. It's reckless. RL80. So it's this luggage that has been on the cross tourer out to the desert. It's been on the cross tourer down to Tasmania. It's been on the cross tourer down to Phillip Island with a group of guys on that ride for the MotoGP. It's been out to the desert on the Africa Twin, and it's been out to the Flinders Ranges on the Africa Twin. And I've also done lots of weekends away on the XR650 with this luggage system on. So this is tried and tested over many, many years. Very, very good system. So basically what happens is you've got a pouch, so you've got a 30 litre pouch that sits down in there, another 30 litre pouch sits on this side, and then there's a 20 litre bag that sits up on top here called the Stinger. And it's actually got a backpack holsters in it as well, so you can turn that into a backpack. Really, really versatile system. And the reason I bought this system is because I could put it on any of the bikes that I owned at the time. I mean, this would even go on a small enduro bike. I mean, even if you had something like a WR450, this throw-over luggage works really, really well. What was that all about? Holy cow. Anyway, so I've seen people travel with these on 250s. It would fit across a 450 enduro bike really easily. Mosko Moto actually do a 40 litre version of these, so they're called the RL40. So I think 10 and 20 either side. So and you can put all these expansion pouches on, all these molly pouches, tools in the back. And I think if you've seen the way that I had it packed to go to the Flinders Ranges on the Africa Twin, it worked really, really well. Really, really a great system. And just works across all bikes that I own now and into the future. There's a couple of downsides. One of the main reasons I changed and went to the soft panniers with the racks on the Africa Twin is on the Flinders Range ride. What happened was when we got to the destination and we unloaded all our gear, this frame, this rackless system, actually stays on the bike. And once you take that out, and there's 2 things. See how dirty that is? Like if you're putting that inside your tent or taking it into a hotel room, and that's clean after some of the desert trips that we've been on, that's actually been washed. But if that's covered in filthy dust and you want to take it inside a cabin or inside your tent to unpack your clothes or whatever, it just makes it a little bit awkward. So that's one of the downsides of it. But once you've taken all that off, this system stays on the bike, and so you kind of get this thing flapping around when it's unloaded. And I've got some footage on the Africa Twin. We did a couple 100 Ks in a day. I dropped all this stuff in the cabin, but left this on. Probably I should have unloaded it, but it was all tied down and cable tied, so it didn't move. But it was just flapping around the bike a bit more than it needed to. So that's probably the main reason I moved away. Well, I didn't move away from it. This will still get a lot of use. It's just on the Africa Twin now. When I do big trips, I'll be taking the Panniers system, because I can actually just pull those bags out or empty the stuff that's out of the bags, take the bags off, and then there's nothing left on the bike that is going to flap around while I'm riding. But it's a really, really good system. I like this system. I think it's probably one of the best ones on the market. It's versatile, it's modular, it carries so much stuff. This beaver tail design that Mosko Moto came up with is absolutely fantastic. I got a picture. We had some firewood. I took the cross tourer with this system on the back, took it over to where this massive great tree was, and basically just pulled it across the back of the bike, put the beaver tail over the top of it, secured it down, and then very carefully rode the bike back to the camp and took the log off, and we had a fantastic fire that night. I think it's probably still burning, such a big log, but it's a really, really good system for carrying lots of stuff. And people put cartons of beer and all sorts of things. It's a really, really good system. Very, very versatile. As I said, it's versatile from the perspective it can go on any bike, but it's modular so that you can make it do almost anything while it's on the bike. For me, there's two downsides, or three. There's three downsides to this luggage system, and Mosko Moto have addressed one of them. This material that they use, incredibly tough, very, very strong, almost impenetrable. You know, it's 30 degrees here today. I'm sweating like a pig. It's so hot. The material, when it gets cold, becomes very, very hard, and very hard to roll, very hard to seal and secure. And so that's been one of the big complaints. Now, not a problem for me, but and I have on a couple of occasions been where it's been sub-zero, and I understand, but on a day-to-day basis it's not an issue for me. But if you live in a colder climate, I can understand how it would be an issue. Mosko Moto have recently addressed that concern, and they've actually changed this material, so whilst maintaining its capacity for strength and versatility, they've made it so that even when it gets freezing cold, you can still roll it up. So I'm not quite sure what they've used with that, but they've fixed that problem. Really cool bag, and again, I'm not doing a review on this at the moment, but so this got this hard panel which slots down against the inside of the bag, but even when it's fully loaded, it's got the window, you can see what's in the bag and what you've packed in that, so it's pretty cool. So that's one of the downsides, is the type of material, and also the fact that it gets very, very dirty. So when you get to somewhere and you want to go and stay in a hotel or a pub or whatever, you've got to drag this, and it's pretty dirty, dropping crap all over the place, and looks horrible. And then obviously having the frameless system on the bike means that when you've taken everything out, all this remains on there, which again, not necessarily a big deal, but you know, I just found a little bit annoying having it flapping around a bit while I was riding. So yeah, so that's it. The system is really versatile. I really, really like that one. Now let me just go and show you one of the other ones. So this is a really cheap one that I bought for, I don't know, it's like 40 or 50 bucks. But you know what, it's been fantastic. This is just a throw over bag, and I've used this on this bike, on my road bikes. It will take very, very easily a 35 litre dry bag, so you can fit a 35 litre dry bag in there, no problems whatsoever. Plus you've got these little pockets on the outside, and generally I put in there chain lube and tools and all that sort of stuff goes in those pockets either side, and that whole thing secures down. And it's got these really cool little tie down points so you can tie down your wet weather gear and all that sort of stuff. Again, I've used that on this bike, on the XR. I've used it on the Africa Twin. I've used it on my VFR 800, my road bike. It just sits across the back seat very nicely. So you don't have to go to massive expense to get luggage. There's plenty of really good cheap stuff out there. Interestingly, talking about soft luggage, we, with the iRide thing, interviewed Chantel Simmons recently. She's the chick on the Chook Chaser who's rode her XT250 around the world. Her first luggage was, you know, aircraft carry-on bags. So she had cable tied them to the side of a bike. So, you know, you don't need to go and buy all the flash stuff to go traveling on your bike. This is the Giant Loop Mojave. Now this basically is just a throw over day pack for the bike. And again, it goes on the XR. I've had it on the Africa Twin, and it's just for carrying, like, just tools for the day, for little day trips. And again, goes across enduro bikes, all that sort of stuff. So really, really cool. So there's such a variety of luggage out there, and it's really just a matter of understanding what your requirements are going to be. You know, I knew hard cases weren't going to be any good for off-road stuff, but I also knew that eventually I'm going to want to be carrying lots and lots of stuff. And then when I saw the Mosko Moto Backcountry 35 Panniers with the wedges, and to be honest, I was reluctant to put racks on my Africa Twin, because it kind of spoils the lines a little bit, but that's just, you know, that's just a cosmetic thing. The other thing is that they're not transportable. So I can't buy racks for this Africa Twin, and then I can't even put them on an Africa Twin Adventure Sport because the Adventure Sport mounting points are different again. So fortunately I found those second hand, and you know, as I said, I'm a tight ass. I've got make no bones about it. I found those second hand. They're a couple $100, and that's why I went down that pathway of getting that Mosko Moto stuff. And what stopped me from buying the Mosko Moto soft panniers earlier was the fact that the Reckless 80 that I had was so good, I didn't feel I needed it. And also the cost of buying racks that are fixed to that bike and staying with that bike was the other thing that stopped me from doing it. I hope that has answered some of your questions about luggage and which way to go. As I said, there's lots of varieties of all those different sorts of ones, and I hope I've explained the pros and cons a little bit about the different ones. As I said, I've used the Mosko Moto Rackless 80 for a variety of trips. It's done thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometres. I've dropped the bike with it on, I've had it over. Had it in deep sand, it's been in rain, it's completely waterproof. You know, it's really good gear. So I'll do a full report when I come back from this next trip. I'll do a full report on the Pannier, the Backcountry 35 litre Pannier system, and I'll actually do that review while I'm on the road, so I can actually talk about the pros and cons as I find them on the track. All right, thanks for watching.